As I returned home from work on a dreary autumn night, my eyes caught something unusual leading up to the house. Bloody footprints. At first glance, I assumed they were left by some poor creature that had met its demise nearby, but upon closer inspection, I noticed each print contained 5 thick, meaty digits, like those found on human hands. My heart skipped a beat as I realized the tracks led straight through my front door and continued across the hardwood floor of our living room. The uneasy feeling grew stronger as I followed the grisly pathway through the kitchen and down the hall toward my bedroom. Each step echoed loudly against the wooden boards beneath my feet, adding to the eerie atmosphere. The scent of iron filled my nostrils, mingling with the damp smell of mildew clinging to the walls. In the silence, broken only by my labored breaths, I couldn't shake the sense that someone or something was watching me. When I finally reached the threshold of my bedroom, my hand trembled as I flipped on the light switch, and therein lay the source of the ominous tracks. I stared aghast at the trail of crimson liquid smeared across the carpet, extending outwards from underneath the bed, and then back towards myself. Panic set in as I saw identical bloody footprints imprinted onto my sheets and pillowcases. No matter where I looked within the confines of my private sanctuary, more appeared before me. What was going on? Did some psychopath break into my home while I was away and decorate my room with my own blood? But wouldn't I have seen them if they did? Had I been secretly wounded somewhere without realizing it? If so, why hadn't I felt any pain until now? These questions swirled around inside my mind as I took stock of my physical state. I didn't feel any injuries other than a minor hangnail on my right index finger, but even that seemed innocuous compared to the sinister scene laid out before me. With growing dread, I remembered how early in the day I'd cut myself shaving, applying a bit of antiseptic to the tiny nick near the base of my thumb. Although not serious enough to warrant hospitalization, perhaps this self-inflicted wound accounted for the presence of fresh droplets still appearing throughout my room. My thoughts tumbled over themselves like an unbalanced spinning top. There must be some logical explanation for the reappearing blood and oddly placed footsteps. Yet no rational basis came to mind, just gut-wrenching fear rooted deep within me. Instinctively understanding that staying here would solve nothing, I resolved to leave everything behind and seek outside assistance. After taking a moment to ensure every exit point from the property remained locked shut, for who knew what might try to enter along with me, I made a dash for my vehicle parked on the street. Once safely ensconced inside, the pounding of my racing heart subsided somewhat as I spun the car keys counterclockwise. Fumbling fingers managed to start the engine after 3 failed attempts, and I peeled off into the night. Though only a few blocks separated me from the nearest medical clinic, it felt like hours passed before I pulled into their parking lot. Every second stretched longer than the last, as though time itself slowed to accommodate my escalating fears. Pulling myself together long enough to shut off the ignition, I quickly emerged from the auto and hustled inside, barging past receptionists and nurses alike. Their faces registered confusion combined with annoyance at my sudden intrusion. None could know how crucial it was to address this strange situation before the mysterious force dragging me towards an unknown destination intervened again. a conclusion borne out by additional bleeding occurrences already sprouting across the sleeves of my jacket during transit. "Look!" I exclaimed, tearing open the buttons of my garment to reveal the spreading patches of deep red that blossomed in response to my panicked movements. "I don't quite comprehend what's happening to me, but I require urgent aid right away. You need to take care of whatever affliction has befallen me." The receptionists and nurses stared at me with a mix of concern and bewilderment. One of them, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, stepped forward and gently guided me to a nearby examination room. "Please have a seat," she said soothingly. "I'll get a doctor to come and assess your situation." I sat down on the examination table, my heart still pounding in my chest. The room was sterile and smelled of disinfectant, which offered a small measure of comfort amidst the chaos unfolding within me. As I waited, I watched the blood continue to seep from my pores, staining my clothes and pooling on the floor. Minutes later, a doctor entered the room, a tall, bespectacled man with graying hair and an air of professionalism. He glanced at me and then at the blood-soaked room, his eyebrows furrowing in concern. "Goodness, what happened here?" he asked, rushing to put on gloves and examining the bloodstains on the floor. "I don't know," I stammered. "I came home to find bloody footprints leading into my house, and then I discovered the same footprints and blood in my bedroom. I'm bleeding, but I can't find any injuries. Please, you have to help me." The doctor listened intently, his expression growing graver with each passing moment. He carefully examined my body, checking for any visible wounds or signs of trauma. After a thorough examination, he looked up at me with a mix of concern and confusion. "I don't see any external injuries that could be causing this bleeding," he said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I'll have to run some tests to determine the cause. In the meantime, I suggest you stay here where we can monitor you." I nodded, relieved that someone was finally taking my plight seriously. The doctor left the room to gather the necessary equipment, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the persistent dripping of blood onto the floor. Fear gnawed at the edges of my mind, but I clung to the hope that the medical professionals would be able to find an explanation and a solution. Hours turned into an agonizing blur as doctors and specialists conducted a battery of tests. Blood samples were taken, scans were performed, and consultations were held. Yet with each passing moment, my condition grew worse. The bleeding intensified, and new wounds appeared on my body without explanation. The medical team remained baffled, unable to identify the cause of my affliction. Days turned into weeks, and I became a prisoner of the hospital, confined to a sterile room as medical professionals from around the world tried to unravel the mystery. News of my strange condition spread, capturing the attention of the media and the curiosity of the public. Speculations and theories abounded, ranging from scientific anomalies to supernatural curses. Constant pain and uncertainty took a toll on me, both physically and mentally. I felt myself slipping into a state of despair, questioning whether I would ever find relief from this nightmare. The doctors, too, grew frustrated as their efforts yielded no answers. One evening, as I lay in bed, my body covered in bandages and my spirit broken, a soft knock came at the door. I mustered the energy to call out, and a familiar face entered the room. The kind, black-eyed receptionist who had guided me to the examination room on that fateful night. "I've been following your case," she said gently, "and I think I may have a solution. There's a renowned paranormal investigator who specializes in unexplained phenomena. He might be able to help." Desperate for any glimmer of hope, I agreed to meet the investigator. He arrived the next day, a man named Dr. Samuel Graves, dressed in a dark suit and carrying a weathered leather briefcase. He listened intently as I recounted my story, carefully taking notes and asking probing questions. Dr. Graves spent days meticulously examining my medical records, researching ancient texts and delving into folklore and legends. Finally, he returned to my hospital room with a somber expression. "I believe your condition is the result of a powerful curse," he said, his voice filled with gravitas. "Someone has placed a hex upon you, a malevolent spell that causes your blood to flow endlessly. But fear not, for I have discovered a way to break the curse." Hope surged within me as doctor. Graves explained his plan, a complex ritual involving sacred artifacts and incantations passed down through generations. He warned me that the process would be arduous and dangerous, with no guarantee of success. But at that point, I was willing to try anything to regain my life. Under the watchful eyes of Dr. Graves and a team of experts, the ritual commenced. Candles flickered, ancient words echoed through the room, and the air crackled with energy. I endured the pain and uncertainty, clinging to the belief that this was my only chance at salvation. And then, in a moment that felt both eternal and fleeting, the ritual was complete. The room fell silent as I lay on the floor, exhausted and trembling. Slowly, I raised my head and looked down at my body. To my astonishment, the bleeding had stopped. The wounds were healing, leaving behind scars as a testament to the horrors I had endured. The curse had been broken. I spent several more days in the hospital, recovering physically and emotionally. Dr. Graves visited me one last time, offering words of encouragement and reminding me to appreciate the gift of life. He departed, leaving me with a newfound appreciation for the fragility and resilience of the human spirit. As I finally returned home, stepping over the threshold into the familiar warmth of my house, I couldn't help but glance at the spot where the bloody footprints had once stained the floor. The memory of that night would forever be etched in my mind, a reminder of the darkness I had faced and conquered. But as time passed and life regained its normal rhythm, the horror story that had unfolded within the walls of my home became nothing more than a distant nightmare, a tale to be shared around campfires and whispered in hushed tone. I emerged from the darkness stronger, armed with the knowledge that even in the face of inexplicable horrors, there is always hope, always a chance for redemption. For just $3 a month, you can have your name featured in my YouTube videos and descriptions. Not only will you be supporting my channel, but you'll also be immortalized in the credits of my content. If you're looking for something a bit more personalized, consider becoming a $25 a month patron. I'll voice your stories and bring them to life on my channel. Create a special drawing just for you, or even write a unique story tailored to your interests. So don't hesitate. Join my patron community today and help me keep the spooky stories coming. And remember, together we can save each other from the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for your support.